Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hi, welcome to your Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Percy Dehne. This is your weather for August 23rd, 2016. And you can watch us, follow us on weather.gov//Alaska, as well as or email us to nws.ar.tvweather@noaa.gov. Now, starting out with tonight's hazards, we have a high wind advisory that's going to be through midnight for Wednesday for the eastern Alaska range, and that's going to be through passes west of the Tok Cutoff. And look for winds, southerly winds gusting to 50 miles per hour. And then we have a flood advisory through the Susitna Valley. That's for the Yetna River at Lake Creek, and that's going to be through 10:45 p.m. for Thursday. Now, starting off with satellite analysis. Putting it into loop, we have a low pressure system right down here just south of Dutch with a warm front extending through the south of the Alaska Peninsula and into the Gulf here. So you're going to have plenty of moisture that you can see streaming into the northern Gulf. And then farther out west, we have a strong occluded low pressure system that's starting to move in off the Kamchatka Peninsula. So you're going to have a nice swath of moisture that's stringing through the western chain and the western Bering. That'll continue to move eastward, west to east movement through the next couple days. And then through the southwest, we have a low pressure system sitting right over here over the Kotzebue Sound region, and then a trailing stationary front extending through the Brooks Range. So that's bringing plenty of moisture out through here. It's up to the southwest interior with a southwesterly flow. So we'll have continued light rain throughout the central to northern portions of the North Slope. And then through the Bering, pretty much you have a northerly flow here, so continued stratus being pulled down from the north, and that'll continue to produce some light drizzle and fog in those conditions, in those areas. Tonight's weather, here's this low pressure system sitting over the Norton Sound region, and then the trailing stationary front extending through Selawik and eastward along the Brooks Range. And you're going to have a wintry mix right here during the evening time before it starts changing over with more southerly air pushing in, and it'll warm up, and you'll have the system change over, the weather conditions change over all rain. Farther south, you have over the Yukon Territory, you have a weak trough, and that's pushing to the east, and you'll have continued scattered showers with that. Over the Gulf, pretty much the southeast panhandle, you're still dominated by this high pressure ridge, so you're going to some clouds, high clouds into the region. Farther north along Yakutat with this trailing warm front in the Gulf, continued southerly flow, and you have some light rain that's pushing in. Otherwise, the Kenai, you're getting some light rain, not real heavy, but some light rain occurring, and that's starting to break out somewhat with this dry slot behind it. Farther out west, as I mentioned before, this strong occluded low pressure system that's going to be moving in off the Kamchatka Peninsula. That'll bring a southwesterly push of air and moisture into the Bering through the next couple days. Tonight's forecast, this 984 millibar strong occluded low will continue to move eastward, and then that'll bring more continued southwesterly winds and rain through the region and moving eastward. High pressure dominating through the central Bering and the central chain. Otherwise, farther north, that low pressure system sitting over Wainwright region for tonight. Well, it will continue the weak stationary front. That'll produce scattered showers and light rain and fog in those conditions. On the backside, with the cold front extending over the Seward Peninsula, you'll have some scattered rain showers. Farther south, again, this high pressure still dominating over the southeast panhandle. You're going to have some moisture moving in, continue the next couple days, but light rain with that. Otherwise, a weak trough that's just sitting south of Kodiak will move inland, and they'll produce scattered rain showers that will move up the Cook Inlet into the Anchorage Bowl. Wednesday forecast, that strong low will continue to move eastward, and that southwesterly push through the Bering will increase strong winds and a swath of moisture ranging from the south going to the north over the eastern Siberian region. Over the Bering Strait, high pressure dominating, so we'll have some light drizzle and stratus in that region. That low pressure continues to fill and weaken as it's over the Kotzebue Sound region. Behind it, on the cold front, you're going to have scattered showers, rain showers with that. Farther north, you're going to have a break there over Wainwright, so that'll be nice for that section there, the northwest coastline. But farther east, from Barrow eastward, you're going to have scattered showers and some fog. Over the southeast, continued high pressure dominating and some moisture moving in basically to Yakutat, but the southern portions of the southeast panhandle will be nice and sunny. Nice day for Wednesday. Otherwise, the south along the Alaska Peninsula, extending up into the Alaska Range, pretty much all in the Anchorage Bowl, pretty much all southerly flow and light rain for Wednesday. This pattern remains the same. For Thursday, this included low pressure system moves closer to Antidote Gulf, and it just pretty much is dying and filling, and there's continued southerly flow through the Bering and central Bering, that is, as to the North Bering Strait. So you get continued strong southerly winds there with that as it weakens. Otherwise, you're going to have a clearer spot here drying out through the northwest, basically from Barrow to Point Hope, and then a little bit of Tin City you'll clear out also. But the low pressure system will form again here, pretty weak, but otherwise it'll bring continued light rain pretty much through from Selawik eastward, just south of the Brooks Range. Over the southeast, again, same last couple of days, high pressure dominating. You're going to have a southwesterly flow, a weak trough pushing in. It'll clear out things behind it from the Kenai northward as it moves throughout the day. But otherwise, you're going to have light rain through pretty much the northern portions of the southeast panhandle near Yakutat. Otherwise, the Alaska Range and the Copper River Basin, etc., Anchorage Bowl will all get continued light rain. Temperatures as of 2 p.m. Pretty much along the chain, you can see it pretty much all in the mid 50s, 57 there at Cold Bay, 57 at Sand Point. The Pribilofs coming in St. Paul and St. George at 49 apiece. Over the southeast panhandle, that's the warmest part of the Alaska today. We have 69 at Klowak, 70 at Seward, British Columbia, and then 60 there at Yakutat. All the temperatures for the northern portions of Alaska, again, the coolest portions again with this high pressure and the easterly flow, colder air coming off the Beaufort Sea. 39 there at Kaktovik, 37 at Barrow, and going down the northwest coastline. 39 there at Cape Lisburne. And then it starts warming up as you go farther south into the Bering Strait there. You're going to have 43 at Tin City and 43 at Gamble. And then for the central interior, you're going to have 63 there at Fort Yukon, 71 at Eagle Airport, and then 68 there at Fairbanks. Temperatures, it was mentioned before, you go along the chain, Adak and Atka 52 and 54 there at Shemya. Not surprised with this strong southwesterly push. You're going to have continued great conditions, pretty warm weather there for the Bering. Tonight's low temperatures, not surprising, the lowest temperature is going to be along the north slope. Barrow at 34, Wainwright at 33, and then Point Hope at 40, and you can have 33 at Dead Horse. Along the southeast panhandle, pretty much all in the mid-50s, 55 at Klowak and 57 at Ned Island, and 57 at Sitka. And then for the southwest interior, Dehne coming at 53, and a little bit farther north, Sparevon coming at 54. Tomorrow's high temperatures will be, again, in the Yukon Territory section here. You're going to have Fort Yukon coming at 70 and Fairbanks coming in at 70 as well. All along the southeast panhandle, pretty much all lower 60s, and it raises up to 70 there at Annette Island, 68 at Kloak, 63 at Haines. And then along the Alaska Peninsula, pretty much with a southerly push, you can see the warmer temperatures, the 60s along the Alaska or the eastern Aleutians here, 52, 51 there at Adak and Atka, 55 at Shemya, and then the Pribilof coming in St. Paul at 54. Flying weather as tomorrow with a strong cool low pressure system in. That's why you have this IFR and MVFR conditions. Farther north, you're going to have that low pressure system and a weak stationary front and northeasterly flow. So that's why you have all that moisture coming off. Also the Beaufort Sea, the low stratus. So that's why you have the worst conditions along the Brooks Range and along from Barrow to Dead Horse. Along the southeastern Gulf, south of Kodiak, extending all the way up to the northern Gulf, southwesterly push, so a lot of low stratus, and it's making it into the Prince William Sound, as well as portions over into Yakutat region. That's for the morning. For the afternoon, as this cool low pressure system moves farther east, this MVFR and IFR will move farther east as well. The conditions farther north will improve throughout the day. It'll be MVFR along the Brooks Range and from Barrow to Dead Horse. Along the northern Gulf, eastern Kenai, Portage, Prince William Sound, extending over to Yakutat, pretty much MVFR to IFR conditions. And then along the chain, you'll have on the Bristol Bay side, you'll have a hole right here, so clearing conditions there. Otherwise, in the afternoon, along the Auckland Mountains there, and north and west of Dillingham, you'll have lower IFR conditions. And then over the Alaska Range and portions of the Aleutian chain there, Aleutian Range, you'll have some IFR to marginal VFR conditions. Tomorrow's flying conditions, Aktuvik, MVFR conditions, Adigan, MVFR conditions, Lake Clark and Merrill, IFR conditions, rainy, MVFR to IFR, windy, MVFR to VFR, and then your MVFR is in the southern entrance. Isabel, MVFR to VFR conditions, Mentaska, MVFR to VFR conditions, Tanita, MVFR to VFR, and the MVFR will be in the eastern section. Portage will have IFR conditions, plain low stratus in there. And then Chillicook and White, MVFR conditions. Tomorrow morning's freezing levels. It's not surprising with this strong southwesterly push of warmer air and that warm front coming through the western Aleutians, you're going to have freezing levels as high as 14,000 feet. And then they get a little lower as you go farther north of the cool air, 6,000 to 8,000 feet, 6,000 in Chukchi Sea, and then the Beaufort Sea along the north slope, 8,000 feet. Over the southeast, you're going to have, again, the high pressure dominating the southeast, south of the southeast panhandle. You're going to have anywhere from 10 to 14,000 for freezing level. Tomorrow's icing, again, will be pretty much along the eastern Aleutians, southwest territory, and the northern Gulf and the southeast panhandle, above 10,000, light to occasional moderate. And you go farther north in the interior central, east of Seward Peninsula, and then through the Brooks Range and the north slope, you're going to have above 8,000 as the freezing levels lower some up there. Tomorrow's jet stream, southwesterly push south of the Kamchatka Peninsula, and then it transitions to a northerly 110 knots as this jet digs into the long wave trough here, these low pressure systems sitting there aloft along the central Aleutians and south into the Pacific. Then it transitions to southwesterly 130 knots. It's a strong jet that's pushing all its warm air up into Alaska, and that's why we had such warm conditions here. Then the jet transitions to northwesterly 50 knots over the southeast panhandle. Farther north, you have a low over the eastern Beaufort, and it's so subtly pushing a low pressure system sitting there just northwest of Wainwright. So on the backside of the low, northwesterly winds 60 knots, and then subtly push through the range, Brooks Range at 70 knots. Tomorrow's 9,000 foot winds. Low pressure system over the eastern Bering. You're going to have light winds, 10 knots on the back side of this low, a little stronger on the front side, 20 knots, southerly push. Then high pressure dominating over the western Aleutians and the western Bering, southwesterly push, 15 degrees, stronger, 30 to 40 knots. You get closer to Kamchatka Peninsula with that strong occluded low pressure system that's stacked. And anyway, over the northern Bering, you have westerly flow, 15 to 20 knots, southwesterly that is, and then transitions to all westerly, 20 to 15 knots as you move on into the Yukon Territory. Over the Gulf, you southerly push on the back, front side of this high, 20 to 35 knots, and then it transitions to northwesterly at 20 to 10 knots. Tomorrow's 3,000 foot winds. Again, this cyclonic low pressure system here in the Bristol Bay region, 15 knots, a little stronger on the Pacific side, 25. Then the high pressure sitting south of the western Aleutians, westerly 15, and then it transitions to a little stronger, 40 knots as you get closer to that strong low that's just north of the Kamchatka Peninsula. Southwesterly push of winds, 30 to 25 over the eastern Siberian region. And then you get high pressure dominating over the southeast panhandle, as mentioned before. So continue to southerly push, 20 to 35 knots. Then it weakens as it goes on shore, and then it transitions to westerly flow, 10 knots predominantly. Tomorrow's turbulence below 4,000 over the western Aleutians, also this portion of the central Aleutians, and then over the Kodiak Island region below 4,000. And then we do have a portion over there, the eastern Beaufort below 4,000 as well. And we'll be back after this with your Marines.
Welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider, and we have a special guest in the studio today. We welcome Amanda Terborg of the Aviation Weather Center. Thanks for joining us, Amanda.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Amanda's flown in all the way from Kansas City, and for those of you that don't know, the Aviation Weather Center serves the lower 48 for aviators, just as the Alaska Aviation Weather Unit here in Anchorage serves all of Alaska. So I kind of wonder, what's the Aviation Weather Center in Kansas City doing to help out Alaska, Amanda?
Yeah, you know, we do a lot of collaboration work with our sister station up here. Lately, we've been doing a lot of work, especially in the satellite meteorology.
Okay.
In particular, we have been looking at ways to better identify icing conditions in clouds, which is a big deal up here because, as I'm coming to find out, even though I'm not from here, you guys have a lot of pilots here.
We have a lot of pilots. In fact, when you say you can't get there from here, that's how you get there.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, so with icing potential then, what's Kansas City working on?
Well, we are working on something that will help us, again, identify the icing in the clouds. You don't want ice on your aircraft. No. Not only does it add a whole bunch of extra weight to your airframe when it attaches to the wings and the nose cone, but it can also mess with your aerodynamics.
Right.
And in the most serious conditions, that can mess with it enough that you can actually crash.
It changes the shape of the wing, and that makes it sometimes impossible to fly, right?
It does, yeah. So we want to figure out a way to better forecast for that.
Makes sense.
Now this particular image is over Alaska. The colors here are a little goofy. It doesn't look like your run-of-the-mill satellite image.
Okay.
But the red is where you have liquid clouds and the blue is ice. But again, it really doesn't tell you a lot where you have icing conditions in that cloud. Because in those clouds there's little droplets and they're cold and they're actually below freezing, but they're still liquid. And that makes them sticky.
Okay.
So when an aircraft flies through there, those droplets are sticking to the aircraft and it can happen amazingly fast.
Right.
And so that's what we're trying to find. And there is a product called the Aircraft Flight Icing Threat that does this. And it's basically looking at the temperature of the cloud, and it's also looking at the size of the droplets to identify a probability and intensity of those icing conditions.
Okay.
And if you flip to the next image, this is a case from Juneau, Alaska, where this probably wouldn't have been the best day to fly around Juneau.
Okay.
Now there was an area of moisture that pushed south from the southwest up along the coast that pushed in a stratus layer. And in the stratus layer there was a lot of those super cooled liquid drops or a lot of stickiness.
Okay.
And so the flight icing threat was able to, in the pinks and the reds there, was able to identify where that icing was. Now this is really cool. You know, it's really cool to be able to identify that. There is, you know, of course, caveats to every product. Much as we wish it would it would happen. Sun doesn't shine all the time, unless, I guess, if you live in northern Alaska during the summertime.
Right, right.
But we need that sun to be able to bounce off those clouds and to be able to see where those super cool drops are.
Okay, so it's a daytime only tool.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Right now, of course, you know, we're in the era of advanced satellite technology, and there is a satellite that can actually use moonlight to see clouds.
Yes.
And so sometime in the future, we hope to be able to do that.
Okay.
Another thing that is a bit of a challenge is multiple layers of clouds. You know, you can only see so far through a thick cloud.
Okay.
And if it's thick enough, sometimes you can't see a layer of icing that's below there.
Right, right.
But even besides those caveats, this product has a lot of potential to help out Alaskan aviators here.
Well, it sounds like a really big deal, and something that forecasters at the Alaska Aviation Weather Unit could use probably on a daily basis, and especially in the middle of a really big storm.
Yeah, I would think so.
Do you have a really good success story in the lower 48 using this tool?
You know, it's a fairly new product, and so we're still evaluating it. But yeah, we've had a lot of cases where we have seen that it does tend to capture those icing conditions.
Okay, very good. Well, Amanda, thanks so much for sharing some of the very interesting satellite imagery and the tools that you're using there at the Aviation Weather Center in Kansas City with us here in Alaska. People can probably find some of this information online, right?
Yeah, here is a website here. It's a page from NASA Langley, and they have this imagery as well as a bunch of other satellite imagery that you can take a look at.
Okay, great. And I'm sure our friends at the Alaska Aviation Weather Center and the unit will be using that in the coming months there with your training and your help there to learn more about that tool to help Alaska aviators any day of the year. That's wonderful stuff. So thanks again for joining us, Amanda, and we welcome you to view any of our Alaska weather facts on YouTube anytime at the address below, and we'll see you next time.
Welcome back to your Alaska weather. Starting off with sea surface temperatures. Here's our scaler here. Sea surface temperatures in Celsius, blue being 0, and it gets warmer all the way up to 25. As you can see all along the Beaufort Sea, you're going to have blue color, so that's 0 degrees, and then it starts modifying again to warmer temperatures with the southwesterly push of warmer air. The warmest temperatures are going to be over the Gulf with the strong southwesterly push with that 130 knot jet, and you can see the warmer temperatures even over the east of this high pressure that's sitting over just south of the Gulf. And you see the red color section there. So that's what it's telling here. Definitely warmer temperatures there from the Dixon entrance southward. And then starting off with the sea ice analysis, continued the main portion right here from Wainwright up to Point Franklin. This is about 10 to 15 miles offshore, and continue with the easterly winds here. This sea ice will move farther east and continue to melt. And then by Wednesday, we're going to have a southerly push with winds, so it'll move even farther away from the coastline. So that'll be great news for the fishermen. Wednesday marine forecast for the southeast. The inside waters pretty much southerly flow there for Lynn Canal, northwesterly 10 to 20 as you go farther south towards the Dixon entrance. Outside waters from Sitka southward, you're going to have northwesterly winds there, 15 to 20 knots, and then southwesterly 15 knots as you get towards Yakutat. For Thursday, the inside waters, again, southerly there near Lynn Canal, but all northwesterly from Juneau southward down to the Dixon entrance. It increases the small craft there near Dixon entrance. The outside waters, northwesterly flow, small craft there towards Dixon entrance, and then westerly as you get up towards Yakutat from Sitka north. And then Wednesday for the south central, pretty much the the western Gulf here, you're going to have southeasterly push here of small craft winds stronger there as you get into Prince William Sound and the northern Gulf. As well, in the inlet, northern Cook Inlet, you're going to have a northeasterly flow 15 knots, and then all easterly, the southeasterly going through the Barren Islands, and as well as through the Shelikof region. And then for Thursday, pretty much all westerly flow, 10 to 15 knots through the inside waters here. Shelikof south westerly 15 knots. And then in the eastern Gulf, you're going to have easterly winds here, northwesterly through Prince William Sound. So winds are going to be decreasing. And then Wednesday along the Alaska Peninsula on the Bering side, easterly 15 knots, light and variable 10 knots there from Perryville extending down to Cape Sarashoff. Then for the Pacific side from Sherikov Island northward, southerly winds 20 knots. And then the Shumagat Islands region, you're going to have southeasterly 20 knots. And then Thursday marine forecast, the Bering side, westerly 10 knots in the Bristol Bay region, and southward along the eastern Aleutians, you're going to variable winds 10 knots, as well as on the Pacific side, south of Sandpoint, and then you get closer to Kodiak, is going to transition to southerly 15 knots. And then for Wednesday marine forecast, from the Shemya to the western Aleutians there to Adak, southwesterly 20 knots. On the Bering side, northerly 20 knots. Variable 10 knots there from Dutch side on the Bering and the Pacific side. And then on the Pacific side, from Atka to Nikolsky, northerly winds 20 knots. Then for Thursday, pretty much all westerly small craft winds along the western Aleutians, and then you start going southerly as you start getting towards Dutch, and then variable 10 knots on the Pacific side, southwesterly south of Adak and Atka, and southerly there as you get closer to Nikolsky on the Pacific side. And then for Wednesday, the west coast, northerly through the northern Bering here, and then it's going to be southerly 35 knots near St. Matthew Island, and then northerly there for St. Paul region. And then Thursday's marine forecast for the west coast, predominantly all southerly small craft winds, a little stronger there near St. Matthew Island. And then the Arctic, you're going to have easterly 20 knots, and then southerly with the southerly winds starting to push up warmer temperatures, all 20-25 knots, a little stronger there near Cape Lisburne. And then Thursday, predominantly all southerly, 15 knots, 25 knots, again stronger going through there, lower Chukchi Sea. And then tonight's forecast, that low pressure system sitting over Wainwright region, you're going to have a weak stationary front, so continued scattered showers and some fog. On the backside, scattered rain showers through the lower Chukchi Sea, Bering Strait. Low pressure sitting just south of the eastern Aleutians, so we got the weak trough extending towards Bethel. So you're going to have scattered showers through the southwest interior here and along the Bristol Bay region. The northern Gulf, you're going to have a weak trough pushing through, so continued onshore flow, scattered showers. Southeast Panhandle, you're going to have some light rain there near Yakutat, but otherwise high pressure dominating. And then for Wednesday forecast, low pressure system pretty much filling up here near Selawik region, and continued scattered showers there, scattered showers on the backside of this low pressure system. Thank you for your weather.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Find a living in fisheries. The UAS Fisheries Technology Program offers online study from anywhere in Alaska, plus labs and workshops in many Alaska towns.
Is most likely a chum.
Find your living without leaving where you are. Fisheries Technology from UAS.